Going from left to right on this second toolbar, now that we've kind of learned customization of it, if I go to a page, I'm just going to search again for Fedora Linux. Okay, so this gives us a couple buttons that we can play around with here. I'm still on DuckDuckGo. This top left button here first is go back one page. What this does is, if you recall, before I searched for this, I was on the DuckDuckGo homepage. If I click on this back button, it'll return back to before I ever did that search. The text is still here in the box, but I have not clicked search yet. So it kind of cached that. It stored it in the browser and said, this is what the previous page is. This is what the state of it was. So I can just simply go back. Maybe I clicked a link on accident. I'm going to show another demonstration. So if the other button right next to it is, if the one's backwards, this is forwards. If I didn't want to go backwards, maybe I went backwards a few times, because this does store a few states in memory. I went back 3 times, I only wanted to go back twice. I can click forward again, and it'll take me right back to that next stage. It just counts 1 backwards and 1 forward. Maybe I click on the Fedora project here, or I click on Wikipedia down here for this link, and I go to the link. Okay, well, I didn't want this maybe. Cool, this has a lot of information, but this isn't official. So I'm going to click the back button, and now I'm back on the DuckDuckGo search page. This gives you a lot of flexibility when coming to trying to, especially with search engines, trying to search through something really quickly and find something very specific. Maybe you're doing some research for school and you need to go through a whole bunch of articles and you just want to scan the abstract of it really quick, and you just want to pop in, scan 3 or 4 sentences of something, see if it's right for you. It's not, you just back out and go right back here instead of having to start over. Without this, you'd have to reopen a tab, redo the search, find where you were, and continue. This allows you to continue keeping where you were going. Just to the right of that is reload page. That's pretty straightforward. For something like this, you're probably not going to need it, but for a more complex page, maybe it has some scripts running in the background and it's something like a content page. Maybe you had a connection issue while something was loading or while you were submitting something. You can just click this button. It probably won't show much here, but if you click it, the page will blink and it'll refresh, not just loading the page. So if I'll go back a little bit. So the back and forward buttons up on the top left here just jump between like save states. It just saves what the previous status of that page was and then goes right back to that. The refresh page actually contacts the server again. So if I did this Fedora Linux search, the first time I did it, it contacted the server of DuckDuckGo, said, what is Fedora Linux? And returned the message to my computer and said, this is what it is. This is the page I was met with by doing that search. If I click back, it's not recontacting the server. All it's doing is saving, this is what the page looked like, and it just gives me that back. There was no network, there was no internet done there. But if I refresh, that is actually contacting the server again. So if I'm running something that I need to continue checking if a status got updated, maybe I ordered food and I want to see where it's at on delivery or something, I can continue clicking refresh, and what it'll do is every time I hit that, it'll ping the server again and say, what's the status of this, and send me back the message with whatever update, if there's an update. These 3 buttons are probably the 3 most used buttons on any browser. I will say with 100% certainty, other than the close button, you will use these 3 buttons more than anything, especially doing research and doing several tasks at once. Just to the right of that is the Firefox homepage. That's what we set up in settings earlier. In this case, it is DuckDuckGo because that's what I told it to do. Again, if you wanted to set this up to a different search engine, if you wanted to set it up to a school Canvas page, maybe there's a special, like a game forum or something. I can't really think of any other examples other than a search engine, to be honest. Maybe there's any other page that you find more interesting than a search engine and you want that to be your main page, your main area to hang out at. This is what this button's going to do. This is going to be your reset this page. I want to start over. That's what the home button does. We don't need either of these 2 buttons either. Those are more advanced functionality. When you click on them, it just shows a couple of things. Just to the right of the home bar here, we see the URL bar. We've used this a couple times before. It's either a quick search bar to whatever search engine we have set up. Maybe that happens to be, in this case, DuckDuckGo. It could be Google. It could be something else you set up. Again, I'll go through search engines in a different video, again, some of the pros and cons about them. But basically, whatever you told it, if you just search something in general, again, like I've been searching Fedora Linux, then it will just do that quick search and return it to you, or you can just use this search bar in the center of the screen. But if I'm on a page that doesn't have a search bar, I don't want to, open a new page that has a search bar. I can just skip that entire step and just use this one at the top of the screen. If at any point in time I decided to start memorizing URLs instead of Googling it, or instead of, Googling. I always joke in my business classes that that's a verb now. If I didn't feel like searching what I wanted to find every time, maybe I go to school, or I know my local restaurant or something, and I don't want to always Google their name. There I go again, using Google. I don't want to always search for their business name, and just to find their website. Maybe I memorize their website. Maybe it's my own website and I don't want to have to search for it every time. I know what it is. I can just go up to the top, and I don't need any of the HTTPS. I don't need www like you used to back in the day. All you need is whatever the URL name is. In this case, DuckDuckGo. Maybe it's newyorkstate.edu or whatever. Like if it's a college, or papajohns.com. Whatever your URL is, you just type it in, hit enter, and it will automatically find that for you. I can do YouTube, right? I can't type youtube.com. I don't need any of the other stuff. I don't need HTTP, don't need HTTPS. It's giving a little recommendation there, but I don't really need any of that. I just hit enter. It will automatically find youtube.com for me and direct me right to that page. Wow, this is a weird page. I've never seen this before. Usually it just gives a bunch of random recommendations. That's what happens when you don't sign in. You have no history loaded whatsoever on your browser. Now we've seen the basics of URLs. We're going to look at this bookmarks page, or this bookmarks button right now. That's what this little star here is. So maybe I wanted to bookmark YouTube. It's a site I visit very frequently. Maybe I'm on a site that I use for school 6 times a day, or half a dozen times a day, and I need to just have a quick button, a quick access to it. So I can just click on this button, on this little star button, and it'll open a little menu. This automatically adds a bookmark for whatever site I'm on. It automatically finds the name of it based on whatever the title is. It automatically gives it a general location. In this case, it's recommending bookmarks toolbar, which is just the generic bar here. It's not in a folder. It's not in anywhere special. It'll just pop up right. Oh, there it goes, right there next to YouTube. It gave up on me. I can just click on the star and I can reopen it. I can edit it now. It's been created. I can edit the bookmark. I can change the name of it if I want. I can change it. I can just do YT for a quick test and hit save, and it updates it. And now I can just click the shortcut button. I can change the location here. I can set it to just the toolbar in general. I can set it to a bookmarks menu, which is hidden from the bookmarks bar. I can choose a specific folder. I can make a new folder. Maybe I want to make a new folder called media, right? And I put it in media. I just click on the little thing next to it and I hit save. And now it'll make a media folder. And if I click on it, it has YouTube inside, or well, YT. I can do edit bookmark. If I do edit by right clicking, which we'll get into a little later, I'm jumping the gun a little bit. We're just going to cancel this. I'm just going to go over that a little later. So we're going to go back up here to edit, and now it's in the media folder. So it knows where it is. It knows it's in that. So we're just going to type back in YouTube, call it the same thing. You can use tags. I've never used tags. I guess they give some recommendations here. We can call it media. How about that? And then hit save. And now I don't really know what tags do. If I do this, does it come up if I search media? Oh, it does. Look at that. It comes up with suggest for media tag. Okay, cool. That might be a more powerful tool I'm gonna have to look into in a second. So we have our bookmark saved. We know how to edit it. We know how to put it in a specific folder. Feel free to explore what Pocket does and how it works. I would love to hear in some comments about how well it works. Maybe you found a specific use for it. If you're not going to use it, you can go back to the modified toolbar and you can just remove the button entirely. That's up to you. Here's your Firefox account. So it's asking me to sign in. I don't want to sign into my personal account on this, but what this is basically doing is it's very simple. It doesn't really have anything specific. You just make an account like you would on any other website, and it stores things like your history, your bookmarks, your add-ons and themes, your passwords, most importantly, and it kind of syncs them around between several devices. So you can have Firefox on your phone and on a laptop and on your main computer or something like that. And when you're signed in on all of them, if you open a tab on one or you save a password on one, it will be on all the other ones as well. Opening tabs, I'm going to preference, it's not a live connection. So just because you're looking at something on one Firefox doesn't mean it's showing on another device. There's a little bit more nuance to that, and I'll get into it when I show this button up here. But for the most part, you can access things. And another nice thing is, especially if you're on, say, your phone, for example, you can do it really from anywhere. but I've used it on my phone where I'm looking at something specific. I'm reading an article that I want to read in more detail on my main computer. You can send tabs, as it's called, sending tabs, to other devices that are connected to your synced account here. And it allows me to, for example, hit send to Fedora desktop, which is what my computer would be called, and it just opens it, or rather requests to open it on this computer so I can read it in a larger screen as opposed to having to read it on my phone. Maybe it's the other way. Maybe I was looking up recipes on my computer and I want to send it to an iPad or a tablet that I have in my kitchen or on my phone even, and I can just say send to phone or send to iPad, and it will allow me to open it really quickly from that device. So it's really flexible as in giving means to jump between devices very seamlessly. This little puzzle piece here won't show much because we don't have any extensions, but when you have extensions, here's some of the extensions that it's probably recommending. Then when you click this, it'll kind of give a drop down menu where you can find them, and you can pin certain ones up here. One I'm going to get into in a future video is called Bitwarden. It's a password manager that I swear by. Bitwarden's really saved me quite a few times where I don't have to memorize passwords anymore. You just know one or you know two, and you have it written down somewhere securely so you don't forget it. Maybe you store it in a safe. Maybe you store it, between your mattresses or taped under your sock drawer or something. So you never forget the password, but you only need to know the one, and you make it a very, very secure password, even if it's random characters. And again, you have it written down. You sign in once, and all your passwords are held there. They're managed. They're randomized. It autofills for you. So we're definitely going to take a look in this. So when you have extensions, they'll show up under this little puzzle piece icon here, and it'll allow you to access all of them kind of in a little drop down shade. It's kind of, I guess I can install Bitwarden really quick to demonstrate how that works. I'm going to do it later anyway, so it'd be nice to just have it. And there will be other extensions to kind of show how this works. So basically you search for what you want, and then it's just like an app store. You just click install and you hit add when it gives you the option, and it will, boom, install it to your system. Bitwarden's a little funky. Sometimes it wants to open this little side menu. It's supposed to provide all your passwords in one spot. I prefer to not do that. I just usually just hit that X and it closes, it goes away, and that won't come up anymore. Up here in this little puzzle piece now is Bitwarden, and something I prefer to do after you've signed into it, especially because when you click on this, it's going to want you to sign into it. When you're signing in, if you have stuff typed in here and this window closes, then it wipes that stuff. So you're going to want to make sure you have everything ready before trying to sign in. Otherwise it can get kind of annoying, exiting and back. So copying from your computer might be difficult to get into this. But just after it's been signed in, it's much better. And you can sign in they have a web version as well, and then also an Android app. So you have several options for how you want to access it. But when you have something up here in this extensions menu, all you have to do is right click it and hit pin to toolbar. And it doesn't activate it per se. It's already active in that, but now it gives you a quick access instead of having to double click. Well, now there's nothing in the extensions menu. But you don't have to click the extensions and then click on the extension you specifically want. You can just put it here, and now I can click on Bitwarden and it's all ready. It's just sitting there ready to be used. So for some extensions that you're going to use regularly, several times a day, that don't just hold like a background functionality, some of them will enable more features on something like YouTube, and you don't need to ever hit the button. You don't ever need to access it like this. Once it's set up, it just sits there. So it can stay hidden away in this little extensions window, and it can just live there. If you notice, it kind of pinned it to this awkward position. Maybe I want it on the left, so it's easier. So again, I go to customize toolbar. I just drag it over. And for this case, I'm going to remove the pocket icon because I kind of talked about it, but I'm not personally going to use it. And the accounts window you also don't need here. I'm going to bury it down here as well. And we're just going to hit done. And now we have our Bitwarden extension right where we want it. If you want to access your Firefox account, like I just hid that little button for it, you can just open application menu. And when you're signed in, it will show here, or you have to sign in here. Again, I'm not going to sign in this case because I would only be able to use my personal account. I don't have like a work account. I don't have a creator account for it yet. So, but when you hit sign in, it'll be signing in like anything else. Nothing really interesting to show there per se. So alongside working on extensions, and now we just talked about Bitwarden a little bit, I'm actually going to jump over to DuckDuckGo so YouTube's not just sitting there in the background. if I open this application menu again, this hamburger menu again, you can notice that we have this passwords menu. And some people might find that interesting because some people probably still have their passwords written down in a notepad, either a physical notepad on paper on their desk, sticky notes, or worse, they have it in a digital notepad text file stored on their computer desktop. I assure you that is possibly the worst way to store your passwords. So Firefox, alongside Bitwarden, if you have Bitwarden already, can store your passwords for you as its own password manager. Granted, it's not as advanced, it's not as in-depth, but it is certainly effective for basic use case. Again, once you sign in, it's not going to let me do anything. But when you sign into an account, you'll get a small window that asks to save your password. All you have to do is hit yes, and it will automatically save the password, the username or email if it's an email, and the URL that was saved to. And then when you go back to that page later to sign in, it will automatically populate those fields and then all you have to do is hit sign in. It takes away a lot of the complication of trying to remember all your passwords, even trying to go to a notepad somewhere and write them down or copy them down, copy paste it into the input field. It's just automatically taken care of for you. Firefox also uses a password randomizer. So I don't see a way here to just generate passwords passively, but there are, this is their password savings. We're not going to do password settings just now. Yeah, there's the suggest strong passwords checkbox. So when you're signing up for a new account, it can come up and say, this is a good secure password for you to use. And it's usually random characters. You're not going to memorize it. I don't memorize any of mine, but when it's saved, you don't need to. That's the lovely part of using a password manager. We've worked our way all the way across this toolbar here. We know what the close button is, obviously. We're going to look at this little list all tabs. It's super simple, but basically what this is doing is it's allowing us to view all of our tabs in a vertical menu as opposed to a horizontal one. I know for a fact there's some people out there probably watching this video that have 30 tabs open on any point in time in one window, and finding things can be very difficult. So this provides two functionalities. One, if I have several tabs, let me go over here. I'm just going to open YouTube again, right? youtube.com in the URL, nice and simple, very quick. Now if I go to this drop down arrow, you can see that YouTube is selected because it's in bold, and DuckDuckGo also exists. I can now click DuckDuckGo and it will go to it. So if I have a lot of tabs and maybe they're way down here at the bottom, I believe this will just be scrollable if it exits the window. I'm not certain about that. Then you can just select on the one you want and you don't have to worry about trying to sort through all of your tabs, especially when they get so small you can't see the icon or the text behind it. You can also close tabs remotely, quote unquote remotely from here. You just hit the close tab button and it'll just close it without even going to it. That's nice and simple. And you can search tabs, which then gives you this little tab search button, which I believe we turned off in the settings. It's obviously here when you click the button, but in the settings, if I go back to it and I do search, if you recall, I turned off searching for open tabs right here, because that will search for tabs obviously passively without doing that tabs tag that you had seen there for a second. If I go back up to this and I do search tabs, you can see, so here's the tabs tag that it's kind of using, and now it's pulling up all of the tabs that are visible here, and I can just search for like DuckDuckGo, and that's the only one it gives me. But if I have that setting enabled passively, then I can actually just do this. Then if I search for DuckDuckGo, it will pull up this tab here at the bottom, and that can get a little distracting. So I typically turn that kind of stuff off. Again, you can leave it on if it's something you're going to use and something you're going to enjoy. I'm personally going to turn that off. And then you also have things like history. I would actually just suggest leaving this one on, because if you search a site very frequently, again, it will want to come up again. Also with these show search suggestions, it'll kind of bring up browsing history and Firefox and bookmarks, things like that. So as long as these are turned off, you won't get those, but I typically turn some of these other ones off because they just get really repetitive. Again, if you want to play with it and turn it on, there's no harm in that. Just play around with it and have fun. I'm just giving some of my suggestions of what I leave off. I believe we've looked through most everything for Firefox at this point. I believe this is DuckDuckGo settings. Yes, we're not going to look at that just yet. That's the that's for the search engine episode. Looks like the last thing, we're kind of coming to a close here. Looks like the last thing we're going to look at is view browsing data and browsing history. This is more useful when you have the sync set up, like I mentioned before. When you have multiple computers set up with Firefox signed into the same account, it has to be the same account. when you have it on your phone or maybe a tablet as well, a laptop, things like that, then you can begin to see more tabs that have been open, things that are currently open on all the devices, things that have been closed recently, and more importantly, tabs from other devices, which is what I really appreciate. Either if you just had something open or if you sent something to this browser, they will all show up in this little window here. Or in some cases, if you sent it actively, if you actually said send to device, you'll see a little notification show up in the top left, I believe, might be top right. You'll see a little window show up, says, do you want to open this? And yes, you can just click yes, and then it will open the tab automatically. This I personally don't use a lot, but if you regularly want to refer back to windows and tabs that you've just closed within minutes or hours of each other, this is going to be a favorite window of yours. You just click on this little icon up here on the top left, and it's not really a tab, as you notice. It's just kind of, well, I guess it is kind of a tab, but it's kind of its own thing. It's not like the settings, where if I click on the settings, right, it opens its own tab. It's kind of its own thing on the left, which I guess is technically a tab. It's just narrower, but you know, you see what I kind of am referring to. So it's always there. It's always easily accessible. It does show which is open, and I believe you can just jump to a tab. Yeah, you can just jump to a tab. So there's 3 different places you can find open tabs with, either in the search bar when that setting's turned on, using this vertical search tabs and hidden tabs and stuff up here, or using this little menu here to view all open tabs. I believe this open tabs menu also shows between other windows. Let's just test really quick. I can open a new tab, and okay, I'm going to show how to do extra windows really quick before I jump into this demonstration. So I have everything in one window, and I can minimize Firefox a bit, make it a little more reasonably sized, right? Click on my dock and then open, and then if I right click Firefox and do new window, it will open a second Firefox window. We didn't go over that in the last episode, and I regret that I didn't, because it's kind of crucial to opening several things at once. You have to right click it and select open new. If you just click on it once, I can demonstrate it again. If you just click on it once, then it'll just select the first one in the list, which in this case is probably going to be the one on the left here. But now we can open a second window and do whatever we want in this one. The benefit to having several open can be many reasons. Again, maybe you do education, and maybe you are also getting into gaming, so you want to have different workspaces. Again, we can have different workspaces with several browsers open on different ones. That's how you want to handle your workspace, is up to you. I've already given you most of the instructions and some of the tips on how to do that best, but I digress. So, but if I don't want to open this window right from here, I don't want to have to go to the dash and open a new window. I want to just do it from here. So how can I do that? Well, there's a couple different ways. I can either go to this hamburger menu on the right and just do open new window. That's pretty straightforward, isn't it? It's right there. Nice and simple. Yes, for the more advanced users watching this, there is a shortcut. I'm going to get to that. Or I can have a new tab open, which I just have this tab sitting here. I can do it with any tab. It doesn't have to be a new tab. I can do it with DuckDuckGo, which already exists. I can right click it and do move tab to new window, and it will pop that out to a new window, and it gets rid of the one in the first one because it has moved it, hasn't copied it, hasn't duplicated it. So now I have DuckDuckGo open in a new window. Or if I close this and I go back to DuckDuckGo using new tab and then my home button, because that's my home default, I can use gestures again. So I can click and drag, and I have this little window in my cursor, under my cursor, right? This can be used, as I showed a little bit earlier, how to move tabs around. This is common in various tab-based applications, where you can just kind of drag and move it, or you can drag it outside of the window and let go, and it opens into a new window. It kind of moved it over. I think it's because it's trying to open it where the last one was open at. But for the most part, it does duplicate into a new window. So there's 3 different ways to do that. The other possible way is if you notice all these grayed out shortcuts on the right of each of these menus. Every menu that has that, that's what the shortcut is to do it. So some of them are a little more complicated, like Control-Shift-A and Control-Shift-Y. I don't know anyone who's personally used those. Some of them are more basic and much more prevalent. Things like Control-T for a new tab, new window, which is Control-N. And this allows you to be on one and be very quick and just do Control-N. It will open a new tab or a new window automatically with no buttons pressed on the mouse, no no menus utilized. I can just, with 2 simple keystrokes while I'm typing something, maybe do Control N, open a new window, and it opens to whatever my configured home screen is. And then I'm going to show you new tab as well. I can close that, go back over to my main window and do Control T, which again is mentioned under new tab. If you forget these, they're always here. You can come refer to it. Click on the main area, do Control T, and that opens a new tab. There's not much change here to see because, you know, I didn't have a page open. Let's make both of these DuckDuckGo. And then if I do Control T, you can see it creates it on the end of the row. So it always puts new tabs on the end of the row. I've shown how to open new tabs with various different methods. I've shown how to use the shortcuts for it. I've shown some gestures for it, but there's some other interesting things. So we noticed that when I open a new tab, basically any new tab, I use the button or I use the shortcut Control T, it opens it on the end. However, what if I wanted to open something in between, because maybe they're connected to each other? Maybe it's some kind of categorized, I'm doing schoolwork, or I'm doing something for work for my job. Maybe I'm researching something for a game. If I'm going to search up Fedora Linux again in DuckDuckGo, I'm just going to click this search button. You can also use enter or return on your keyboard to just do a quick shortcut for that. Most search systems will utilize that. If I'm on any of these links in here, I want to go to the Fedora project, for example. If I left click it, that's going to replace my page, right? That's going to replace my DuckDuckGo page with the page I just clicked on. And in this case, is the Fedora project main page, which is where you get the Fedora Linux information and, more importantly, this operating system that we're learning with right now. However, what if I wanted to keep my DuckDuckGo page? Well, I can use this back button again and I can go back to it. But now, how do I get this into a new tab? Well, I have a right click on my mouse. So if I right click, I get this whole menu, which is chock full of various settings, which can almost be a little overwhelming sometimes. I can open links in different methods. I can bookmark a link without even having the page open. I can save a link as something, which typically saves it as an HTML page, which again is a little bit more of a developer thing, but can be useful in the right scenarios. I can save it to Pocket. There's that Pocket coming back that I personally don't understand. You can copy the link. This will copy the link to the page. So in this case, fedoraproject.org to your clipboard. You can send it to someone. I don't know what this copy link without site tracking is for. I mean, I can take an assumption what it means, but I've never personally used it. And you can do search DuckDuckGo or search whatever your search engine is, but we'll get into that in a second. We're just going to click on this open link in new tab. And if you notice, it'll open just to the right of the page that we're already on, as opposed to on the end like it was before. This is how you keep things organized. Let's also open Get Fedora. Oh, that's not actually a link. Let's open, okay, there we go. Well, that's a little awkward. Can I do something else? That's more of a clear button as opposed to a menu. Let's do Learn More for Workstation. If I right click this and do open link in new tab again, it'll just open to the right here. So now, oh look, there's the Framework 13. I love this laptop. And you might hear about me talking about it a little more frequently as well. So that's some very easy and short ways to open these tabs just right next to each other. So you can keep things nicely organized and neat, as opposed to having to put them on the end and then drag them and reorganize them where you want them to actually be. So that's most of the basics for how I would use a browser, how I would use some of the tabs and things. I'm going to go over some of the shortcuts to make it a little faster and a little easier for some people. If you feel overwhelmed at all and don't want to continue that's perfectly fine. You can either skip through this part, or if this is it for the video, which it might be, I'll see you in the next video. But if we want to open a new link, again, like we just did, right? We can right click and we can click open link in new tab. But that's 2 clicks. That's really tiring after a while, isn't it? When you need to open 8 links or something. If you have a modern mouse, which most people probably do, or even if you have a touchpad, I believe the touchpad settings are set up properly. We haven't gone through settings just yet, but you're welcome to try. If you middle click with your mouse, like actually press down on your scroll wheel, it might be a little awkward at first if you're not used to it. If you just middle click, it will open this link again in a new tab. That's the automatic method for that. If I go to this page again, I can right click on, again, we do this Learn More for Fedora Workstation, middle click again, and it'll open this. That's a quick shortcut to right click and open link in new tab. It's super simple. But doing one better, if I have a whole bunch of these links open, right? If I open that one, I open this one, I just go down through this list and open all these pages. Now I have a whole bunch of links open here, and that's going to get really tiring to go through and hit all of these X's on every tab and aim on each one. What I can do instead is, just as quickly as I opened a new tab with my middle mouse button, I can click it again and close the tab without having to click on the X. I can just middle click on every one of these tabs and it'll automatically close it without having to hit the X. So closing a whole bunch of tabs in rapid succession is much easier with just using the middle mouse button. Most people don't even know there's a button under there. By the way, your mouse button will click down and actually holds quite a bit of functionality. If you're on touchpad, as I mentioned before, which some people probably are, typically the option for it is either you left click, like you press down left and right click at the same time. I believe it's the same for PC. No, it's not the same for PC right now. You press left and right click at the same time, or you tap with 3 fingers, as if you were, if you kind of got used to scrolling. I realize now I haven't gone through a whole bunch of the touchpad settings or the touchpad kind of gestures because I'm on a PC with a proper mouse. I apologize for that. I might make a separate video dedicated to laptop stuff, so look out for that. It should be tapping with 3 fingers to open a new tab as well. Let me know down in the comments if that in fact works for you, or maybe I can attempt to provide some more feedback on that. But if you also have a mouse, if you have a mouse on laptop, you have a little wired or wireless mouse, all these same steps will hold true because it's a mouse. You have a middle click, you just press middle click and it'll open the new tab, and you press it again to close. There's an odd number of functionality behind small gestures and shortcuts like that you might not know. If you want to get a little more advanced, you recall that we had Control T, right, to open a new tab. I can open a new tab, I can set it to home, I can open another new tab, set it to home again. But if I want to do the same thing I did with my middle mouse button and click a bunch of tabs, how do I do it with the keyboard? Because if I can make a new tab with the keyboard, how can I close one? Well, it's on the same hand, just Control W, same time. And it'll close not only tabs, but also the entire window if you're on the last one. And that will be my conclusion to Firefox basics, including settings, theming, getting things set up, getting some changes put in place. I'm going to go through and I'm going to do a search engines video coming up soon. I'm going to do an extensions video, a recommended extensions video coming up soon. That'll include things like password managers, ad block. I personally do a lot of content consumption, so I'll show a couple recommended extensions for that as well. And I hope to see you all in the next episode, where I believe we're going to go through the settings menu, because that's probably what we need to hit next. Cheers.